Hi, everybody. My name's Tom Davis, and I'm one of the recruiting consultants for Student Athlete World. And in a way to bring you more information on recruiting and what we do at Student Athlete World, how I do stuff, I'm going to be doing a series of interviews with coaches, and I am actually honored and proud today to have Student Athlete World and International Tour President Tim Ryerson, who's my big boss. He's a confidant. I go to him for a lot of information. He's been in this a long time, and uh, we're gonna go over some stuff today that should be helpful information to you. So introducing Tim Ryerson, President of Student Athlete World and International Tours. Tim, good to see you, and just give everybody a little background information on your background.
Sure. Well, thanks, Tom. I got into this business 2009, so I've been doing it now for 11 years. Before that, I was a college basketball coach. So for 8 years, coached college basketball, a bunch of different levels, Division II and Division III. And really, when I got out of college coaching, the impetus for starting Student Athlete World was so obvious to me, the need for help for athletes and families to get help with the recruiting process. You know, as a college coach, I'd see so many kids come on campus visits or communicate with me, and they were just, literally clueless on the recruiting process. And the ones that did kind of know a little bit about the process had such an advantage over their competitors or their peers, just because they had a little bit of education. And then, of course, I knew how the recruiting process worked. The way it really works and the way that a lot of high school coaches, club coaches, youth coaches think it works can be drastically different. So in 2009, I just said, hey, I already know how this works. Let me just, see if I can help a few kids and see if I can maybe, help some kids get recruited. And, fast forward 11 years and, now here we are. We've helped over 2,000 kids up to this point. So it really just started out of necessity, and there continues to be a huge need for what we do. The challenge is getting people to understand that, because more and more over the years, the disinformation just continues to grow, which can be kind of frustrating.
Sure. Do me a favor. Talk a little bit. Just give a little background. I want to talk a little bit about the international tour stuff with Student Athlete World and you too. Could you give everybody some information on that?
Sure. Yeah. So we started the recruiting business in 2009. Around 2014, so a few years in, one of our recruiting clients got contacted by this company to do international tours, to do an international tour with, some other random company. And it struck a bell to me because back when I was a college coach, I did the same thing. So I was contracted to coach on these international trips for this other company this is 2004 to 2008. And I said, I've done that before. I know these people. And it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. We said, well, we are already working with these high school athletes. Maybe we could add on this piece of international tours. So basically what we do in that side of the business is we take a high school youth or college athlete, put these teams together and combine a international sports experience with a really fun travel experience. So really, I like to think of the trip as kind of three parts. 1/3 of it is an awesome sports experience. So, for example, a softball player or a lacrosse player, a basketball player, we put a team together and go compete in an international tournament. You see behind me the logo, the big, USA. We wear red, white, and blue and represent our country and get a chance to do something that not many people get to do, which is, go play in an Olympic style event with people from all over the world. So that's a third of it. The other third of it is, the leadership development piece, where we want to prepare kids for the next step in their life by getting them an opportunity to do something like this. So, the world perspective that they will get, seeing themselves as a piece of a bigger puzzle when they get to meet people from other countries and get to understand diversity and get to understand, how people are different. I think that helps young people grow. I know it did for me, being a kid from a small town in Wisconsin. The first time I got to meet people really different than me, it really helped me understand myself better. So I think that's really important for kids to do that. So that's kind of the second phase, or second part of it. And then the third part of it is just a really fun vacation, a really fun, go do some fun stuff, go to the beach, go, vacation with family. That part of it, to me, one of my kind of pet peeves is with athletes and families. A lot of times sports can be not fun. Sports can be mom and dad, it's like a job. They're going to these suburban tournaments and they're mad at their coaches and they're mad at the other team, and everything's a competition to be better than everybody else, to get this college scholarship, it's just always negative. So for us, what I like about it is we want to combine, hey, we're all in this field because we like sports. So sports should be fun. Sports should be something you look forward to. Sports should be something that creates memories. But all too often, we're not really partaking in things that are fun. We're sort of getting on the hamster wheel of being outraged about everything all the time. So our tours, our 10-day trips are really meant to be those three things: an awesome sports experience, an opportunity to develop as a person, and then a really great way to hang out with your family.
Oh, so let's get a little bit into the recruiting thing. Tell me, Tim, what is your philosophy? What is the recruiting process for a young man or young woman?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of, since the very beginning, kind of have our core philosophies of recruiting, the things that we believe in, that is very, very simple, like keep it simple. One is, cast a wide net, so you don't want to be narrow-minded and say, I want to focus on these three schools. You want to cast a wide net. You want to make sure that you're not targeting schools way above your ability level. And this is a very big problem that kids have. They get single focus, and whether it's I want to go D1, or I want to get a scholarship, or you have to be realistic about your ability level. You want to cast a wide net in the recruiting process, even if that means targeting schools that maybe you're not interested in going to, as a way to help leverage the tuition or get yourself a better offer. As you know, Tom, that's a really hard concept to get clients to understand.
Sure.
They want to fight you on that, and they want to say, well, we don't want to contact this school because we're not interested in that school. But it's hard to get them to understand, well, you still want them to be interested in you, because that's going to help more people be interested. And a lot of times that's because the parents are nice and they don't want to play games. But what they need to understand is this whole process is a big game. The college coaches are playing the same game. They're not recruiting just your kid. They're recruiting lots of kids, and they're trying to get the best one. So you got to do the same thing. You got to recruit lots of colleges and try to get the best one. So those are kind of the core things that we believe in. If you cast a wide net, if you're realistic about your ability, you're going to have better offers in the end. It's simple, but it's a proven process that helps people in the recruiting process.
Absolutely. I mean, you bring up some points that I talk with in our initial consultation when talking to people, and mom or dad's like, "Well, I'd like them to be like 2 or 3 hours away," and I said, you are just doing such a disservice to yourself. And I always tell my kids, I talk about, what, I'm putting you out there nationwide. You're going to hear from people you had no idea about through our search engine, our Saw College Match, and all that. Research the schools, and you're going to find a whole world that you didn't know about. And the other thing is, like I said, the leverage. I mean, your best offer could come from a school that's, not in your top 3 to 5 picks and all that. But you can leverage that offer against or with a school that you want to go to and want you to. So that's great points. I really like it. In the recruiting process, there's a lot of people have different ideas, boys and girls. Ideally, Tim, what if you're a kid with a good skill set and you want to do an initial consultation, it is there a difference in when boys and girls should start, and when should you look to start your recruiting process?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's kind of a difficult answer, I think. I think when you should start the process is when I think that's different for each person. When you are confident that you are going to be or want to pursue being a college athlete, and you don't think that's going to change. If some kids might know that in 8th grade, I know I'm ready. I'm going to play in college, and this is my goal. This is what I want to get to. For that athlete, I think they're right to start in 8th grade and start thinking about it. For other kids, that might be sophomore or junior year, when they're more serious about it, when they're committed to it. Because really the only negative of starting early or whatever is just wasting your time. Or I wouldn't say wasting your time, but putting the cart before the horse, like worrying about, playing in college before you're making your varsity team in high school or something like that. You're just, that's really the only negative. It's other than that, it's all positives. The earlier you start, the more advantages you're going to have. And I tell clients a lot too, it's not that you have to start in 9th grade. It's that if you start in 9th grade, it's going to take some time for you to get comfortable with how to handle talking to college coaches, getting comfortable how to talk with somebody like yourself, your recruiting advisor. It's going to take things that are very easy, for us to think about. Oh, I got to write an email and send it to a college coach. Well, that's hard for a 14-year-old to do. They don't know how to do that. They don't know what to say. And that might take some time to get that right. So if you start early, you kind of get that practice out of the way so that when the real stuff comes around, the real recruiting, they're ready for it. So really the earlier, the better always, as far as when to get started. Each sport is a little different. There's some sports that do tend to do a lot of recruiting during senior year. There's other sports that, for the most part, recruiting's over by the time senior year comes around. You mentioned the boys versus girls. I mean, just anecdotally, I would say I think the girls' sports tend to commit earlier. And I don't think that has anything to do with the rules and regulations of recruiting. It has more to do with the nature of boys and girls. And, a lot of times the female athletes want to get the recruiting process out of the way. Also, as you know, biologically, women develop faster than boys do. So the better players stand out earlier on the female side. So by freshman, sophomore year of high school, a lot of times it's easier for the college coaches, especially we're talking like Division I, they can figure out who the best players are at sophomore year on the women's side a little easier than the guys can. Some of these guys are, late bloomers, for whatever reason, growth spurts and things like that. So I would say the women, it's just kind of my guess or my anecdotal thought on is the women tend to commit a little earlier. But yeah, as far as when you should start, really as soon as you're serious about playing in college, you should get started, because you will have so many more options and opportunities if you get serious about this sooner.
Yep, I agree. I mean, I don't know how many times I'll tell my clients, or I'll tell a prospect that I'm talking to, and they know that they want to do it, and I'm like, yeah, you know, the earlier that you can start is better. And I'm just going to give an example, and I'm actually going to use a name here because I'm pretty proud of this kid. A young football player named Hunter Bowling from Sherman, West Virginia, who I went down. I had another young man, Lane Daniel, that played for them that I worked with, and actually went down to Sherman to meet him when he was in 8th grade. And he just sent out like a senior progress chart of pictures of his body and the development from 7th grade all the way to 12th and all that. And I tell my players, I'm like, when coaches get your information and we share information with them at a young age, okay, that means that they have your information, and they're going to get updates through us, you know, more information. They're going to see, I call it the story of your progression through the years. And the more information and progress that I think that college coaches have on that, it's a lot easier for them to sit there and say, I have this whole kid's story, instead of, you know, this kid that started maybe junior year, I have this, and this. They've watched how hard the kid has worked over the years. So, and I think it really makes a difference.
Yeah, and to add to that too, college coaches are human beings. You know, you're not trying to get recruited by a computer, you're trying to get recruited by a person. And the more you can communicate with a person, develop a relationship with a person, stay at the top of their mind, the more likely you might be to sort of win the recruiting process with that person. I can remember, you know, when I was a college coach, yes, I wanted to get the best player I could get or the best fit for my program or whatever. But I also tended to recruit people that I liked and people that I, you know, had a good rapport with. Well, if you think about any relationship, the longer you're involved with somebody, the more likely you are to have a stronger relationship with them. So for all those reasons, you know, starting early is great. They like to see, I like the way you said that, they like to see the story, the development of the kid, for sure.
Sure. Staying on the recruiting a little bit, this is something I know you and I talk about all the time. You have Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA, junior college, different tiers, and everything like that in the sports. Talk a little bit about the skill set that, you know, you see needed and how it fits in to the recruiting process, for, you know, from D1, D2, D3. You know, we've all heard the thing, okay, I want to go Division I and all that. Well, Division II schools recruit Division I players because they want to look at the top quality. And those people that don't go, you know what, they're on the top of the list and everything. So just talk a little bit about skill set, and, you know, everything is not Division I.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's the biggest hurdle in our industry for sure. Everybody has an opinion about, you know, go to any high school game, youth game, you can, you know, see the line of dads down the left field line, and you can ask every dad and they're going to have an opinion. Well, this guy's D1, this guy's D2, this guy's D1/D2. Everybody has an opinion about it. So for me to say, well, my opinion, I'm the expert, this is what is, nobody's going to listen to me about that. But this is the way that I always approach that question. I do these speaking events around the country, and I ask kids, I say, raise your hand if you've went to and watched an NCAA Division I game. A lot of kids put their hand up. They've been to their local, you're in Pittsburgh, they've been to a Pitt game. I'm here in North Carolina, they've been to an NC State game or whatever. And then I say, raise your hand if you've been to and watched an NCAA Division II game. And maybe a couple hands are up. Raise your hand if you've been to an NCAA Division III game. Maybe one or two people have their hands up. Raise your hand if you've been to an NAIA or junior college game in your sport. Very few hands. So the point that I make to these kids is you literally cannot have an opinion about this topic if you've never actually seen it. I mean, that's insanity to think what D1 is, what D2 is, what D3 is. There are dads, there are coaches at the youth level telling parents what level their kids are that literally have not ever watched that level play. So if you've never watched, let's pick a sport, for example, Division III baseball. If you've never been to and watched a Division III baseball game, how on earth can you be able to tell other people that they're better than D3 or that they're D2 or whatever? The reality is most people never even go, and not just go to a game, but go to a practice, go to, really see what these players are like at each level. So that's what I challenge parents, coaches, athletes to do, is go with your own eyes, look at these levels. If you go, let's say one of our clients, right, a junior in college, a junior in high school is one of our clients, and they go for an overnight visit, and they go and get a chance to watch the team play and practice, and that kid comes away from that visit saying, I am better than all of those players. I am so much better than this level. It's not even close. Okay, great. If you know what I mean, but as well as I, does that ever happen? No. What happens is they go there and they say, oh, I didn't realize how good these players were at D3. I didn't realize how good yeah, of course you didn't, because you had no idea. You'd never seen them before. So I don't let parents, youth coaches, athletes tell me anything. It's not my job to tell them what level they are. It's my job to help them understand what the different levels are. So I just want them to go to that campus visit, go watch that team. And if they come away from that visit saying, I'm so much better than this level, then great, then I'll believe them, or then I'll help them with that route. I'm telling you, in a decade of doing this, I don't think I've ever heard that before. I don't know if you've heard that before. I don't think I've ever heard a kid go on a visit, go watch a D3 game and come away and be like, oh, those guys are terrible. And that's the challenge with what we do. I was a Division III coach in basketball, and, we had a team one of my last years that was really good. I mean, we had, our starting front line was 6'8", 6'10", 6'11", and my main objective in recruiting was just get the dang kids to come watch us play. Because once they watched us play, they'd say, oh, wow, you guys are good. Before they watched us play, they would just assume we're a bunch of 5'9" kids that, are dribbling off our knees, because this is what their coaches, their youth coaches, their club coaches, this is what they're telling them. Because here's what happens, Tom. This is exactly why this becomes a problem. Division I, there's like 300 and different in every sport, but there's like 350 schools in Division I basketball, right? So when you think of D1, you're thinking of the top tier players at the top tier universities. So you're thinking the guy playing for Duke, the guy playing for Stanford, whatever. D3, same thing. There's about 400 schools. When you think of D3, you're not thinking of the top tier D3 players. You're thinking about the bottom level of D3 that has JV teams or developmental teams or whatever. And you're thinking about that one kid from your school 3 years ago who was so bad he didn't really play in high school, but he ended up getting on that roster at that crappy D3 school. Well, that's the kid that you're attributing to D3, but then you're not doing the same thing at D1. You're thinking about, put yourself in the shoes of your Division III coach. Are you trying to get another kid that's the worst kid on the worst team in Division III? Of course not. You're trying to get the top tier Division III player. So like you mentioned earlier, you're recruiting sort of above your level. So it's a really it's probably the biggest problem in what we do is getting people to understand how competitive the different levels are. The main thing is, don't take someone else's word for it. Go watch these teams, put the work in communicating with the coaches so that you can get the campus visits, so that you can watch the practices, so that you can watch the games, so that you then can see with your own eyes where your skill set matches with reality. The last part I'll add to that is, and I think you'd agree with me here, usually the kids can figure it out. Once they really see these players, the athletes, the high school athletes, they kind of know, okay, I'm saying I think I'm D1, but I really know I'm not. It's the parents that have the harder time with it. The parents have a harder time really seeing where their kid fits in with in the scope of the skill set at each level. The athletes kind of get it. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right on track. And we talk about it and everything. The other thing that I want to add too is to throw out there is 6% of all high school athletes go and play in college, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, and JUCO. So if you go and you play, consider yourself in that top 6%. But I also, one of my big things is, and I know it is with you too, and you're a stickler for it, is the academic fit along with the athletic. And so many people, don't know about the academics at D3 and everything like that. And I have Division I baseball players and softball players that play Division III sports. Number one, because they know that they're not going to be a professional in that sport. But Division III schools are great academically, and there's a lot of academic money that goes out through Division III. So by them going to that school that's going to take care of them for the next 40 years, they get more money than they would Division I or Division II because of their academic stuff. And what they do is they go play. They're very successful. They've joined that network of that school and looking for jobs. And the other thing is, they've taken care of themselves, financially by getting more money to go and play at a place that's going to take care of them better than what a Division I school would have.
Yeah, that's of course a great point. The reality is, you just don't know what a school costs until you get a piece of paper with your name on it saying what you have to pay. You can Google the starting price of the school. It's essentially irrelevant. What's happened over the last 20 years is the price of college has gone way, way up. I mean, tripled really in 20, 30 years. But then the price of discounts or packages, of course, goes up with it because, schools, like to, it's really been something to see how much the price of colleges went up, but what people are paying isn't necessarily changed as much. So you just don't know what the price is of your school until you get that piece of paper. But then the other question is not just the cost of college, but the value of college. So is this every decision to send your kid to college is an ROI decision? Okay, I'm going to pay some money, and then in the end, I'm going to get this degree. A lot has changed, even in the time that we've been in business. In the old days, it was any college degree was going to set you apart from the people without a college degree. I don't really think that's true in 2020. Kind of the default now is the college degree is what a high school degree was 20 years ago. Is the degree valuable? So it's not just I shelled out some money and now my kid has a college education, they're going to be set for life. That might, a generation or two ago, that might have been the case. Now it's, I could actually waste some money on college at a degree or a school that's not really a good program. And that brings in another, I think, a really growing important question is not just the school, but the program, the major. Colleges are adding majors that don't have jobs connected to them like crazy. Why? Because kids want to major in them. So if I'm advising kids now, I'm saying you're not just looking at the cost of college. That's one factor. You're looking at cost, value, and program. You know, what is, if you're going to have to shell out some money for college, which 99.99% of people are, you want to make sure that's a good investment. So it's not just as simple as what school's cheaper. It's what school's a better fit for you, for your future. So there's a lot at play. It's a really big decision, and it's a lot of money. Other than buying your house, it might be the biggest investment you make in your financial life, and it's being made by 18-year-olds. So that's why parents, advisors like us, and the athletes all need to work together, because it's such an important decision. And it's going to have, like you said, a 40-year decision. It's a decision that's going to stick with you for a long time. So you want to make sure that you get it right. And transferring in college is very expensive, because your credits don't always transfer. It probably adds another year or two. So why not get it right the first time?
Exactly. Going to move on a little bit now. And, you know, recruiting, I mean, since I go back and talk to people about my recruiting process in football and in baseball, and how, you know what, everything, you know, back then, I'm going to age myself here. I graduated in 82, and you know what, there was no social media, there was no, you know, no emails. Everything was done calls and letter wise and everything. And you know, we've gone developed into the technological age, and you know, now social media plays a big thing. Being on Twitter, I always make sure my kids, you know, if they don't, they get on Twitter and everything, because a lot of coaches will do, you know, a ton of their stuff on it. Big thing now, COVID. You and I have talked about it. I talk to prospects. I deal with it day to day with my clients, with college coaches, everything going on. The NCAA, in their good guy role, has, you know, determined, hey, sure, we're going to give extra years to you seniors. And to, you know, all they went last year, all you spring sport athletes, you get an extra year. The NJCAA, National Junior College Athletic Association, gave everybody a free year. So now you're getting into things where seniors are coming back. Roster spots aren't there because the money's not there and everything like that. Talk a little bit about how COVID is changing stuff, Tim, and how our role can be vital as far as being an advocate for a player and everything like that.
Yeah, two good things there. Before I touch on the COVID, I want to touch on, you were talking about how recruiting has changed over the years. I always like to point out a really good story that I think helps parents understand how recruiting has changed. So I'll age myself as well. So I graduated high school in 1997 from the state of Wisconsin, which is about, at that time, maybe 5 million people. A lot of people think Wisconsin's like, 50,000 people if you're not from there. So Wisconsin, about 5 million people. In 1997, it had around 30 colleges, okay? There were 2 AAU basketball teams in Wisconsin in 1997. I know this because there was 2 teams, and for one tournament, the second best team asked me to come and be like a sub player. So I got to play like one AAU tournament in 1997. The point is the AAU, or like the club sports, was only for like the elite best players. So literally 30 basketball players in the state of Wisconsin. And there was about 30 colleges. Fast forward 23 years, there's still the same number of colleges in Wisconsin. There's still, I mean, you know, you get maybe they added 2 colleges, right? Or probably 1 or 2 folded. So there's literally the same number of colleges. Okay. There are more AAU basketball teams than there are high school teams. So if you think about that, supply and demand, the supply, the number of college scholarships or college opportunities to play basketball is exactly the same as it was 23 years ago. But the number of people who think they're worthy of those places is astronomically different. This is an entire business, youth sports machine around. We're gonna have a club team. We're gonna have a showcase. We're gonna have, all these things are built around. We're gonna help you get this scholarship. They're not adding more scholarships. There's literally the same number of colleges as there were years ago. So that makes it extremely difficult because so many more parents think, well, I've been paying for elite travel teams for so long that, that I'm good enough to play at this level of college, or I deserve it essentially because I've invested so much money. So it's very hard for parents to understand just how competitive that is. And even if you've been paying for travel and showcase teams, it doesn't necessarily mean, that there's that opportunity for you. Fast forwarding to the COVID question, I think what COVID situation has done is highlighted what was always true. What was always true is that kids needed to be proactive and reach out to college coaches. Kids needed to cast a wide net. Kids need to be realistic about the recruiting process. It's just they didn't see it. What COVID has done is really made it extremely visible that, if I would have got recruited I hear this from kids the last 3 months, it's been insane. I would have got recruited this summer, but my showcase event got canceled in July. So now I need your help. No, like if that showcase event in July happened, all that you would have done is you would have got to play basketball in front of your parents and you would have got a free t-shirt, but you still would need to do what you needed to do anyway, which is be proactive, reach out to college coaches, have realistic, target schools. But it's like COVID is giving kids the excuse. Like, I'm not getting, part of that is true. You brought up a good point. The NCAA basically giving everybody an extra year of eligibility. Yeah, that's great for the kids in college now, but it really hurts the kids in high school. Sure. The kids, they're not adding more spots on the team. They're not adding more scholarships. They're just delaying, they're giving these kids extra. So it's like anything, people like to talk a lot of times about free this and free that. Well, it's not really free. It's just, it's coming from, it's a zero-sum game. So if you're going to take it from somewhere, it's coming from somewhere else. So, so the COVID situation, I think, has just highlighted the need for kids to do all the things that are our core philosophies at Student Athlete World. It just makes it much more visible.
Great. Before I get into our last thing, I just want to touch on a thing. There's a lot of recruiting assistance services out there, and no names or anything. I just want your opinion, Tim, on Student Athlete World and what we do that's different than other places that makes us successful and helping kids.
Yeah, that's a good question. Student Athlete World is any recruiting service. It's all about the people. So there's fancy web tools, and we have, you mentioned a college match system, and we have website with integration with college coaches and profiles and pictures and videos. All that stuff's great. But in the end, with college recruiting assistants, we and any other company are only as good as the people working for them. The people, the individual recruiting advisors like yourself working with the kids. If you're doing a really good job with your kids, Student Athlete World's an amazing company. If you're doing a really crappy job communicating with your kids, Student Athlete World is a scam. It's as simple as that. So when, when the trend in this industry since I started in 2009 has been going toward less personal and more cookie cutter, more website, more tech, more everything. We've tried to grow, we want to have the features and options that kids can use, they can go on our website and they can click some buttons and get connected with hundreds of colleges. So we have that, but we're always about the people and we're always about the advisors, personal and honest. That's always been our forte. And we have people like you, Tom, and that's what it's about. And that's what we're not trying to make it about anything other than that. Sometimes people want to buy the bright, shiny object, but sometimes the bright, shiny object doesn't help you get recruited. And that's always been my challenge is providing what helps in the recruiting process is not always what people want to buy. And there's a kind of a key point with that. If you go on our website, if you go on studentathleteworld.com, you're not going to see a ton of the word scout. You're not going to see scouting service, scouting agency, scout this, scout that, because it's a load of crap. Because the other companies that use the word scout a lot want parents to feel that their kid was scouted out, that their kid was scouted, right? Well, that's crap, because our industry is the parents pay us as advisors and we provide value to them by saving them money in college, getting them to this school that the right fit that they want, helping them with navigate the recruiting process, taking stress off their plate, and so on. So we are taking money from our clients and providing a valuable service to them. That's how we're judged on if we do a good job. Read through the testimonials on our website, we do that. But to say that we're scouting a kid is disingenuous, because are we scouting a kid who's not paying us? Of course not. So the hard part with the industry is it has a bad name in some ways, because people are using the word scout and making it about, oh, get on this matching program and we're gonna be Match.com for college recruiting, and you're gonna create a profile for $4.99 and we're gonna link you up with all these colleges. That stuff doesn't work. That stuff isn't it. And having been a college coach, it's laughable how many people come up with that idea. Since I've been in business 11 years, I'm probably 50 people have come across my desk or contacted me saying, I got this idea. We're going to be Match.com and we're going to connect these coaches with these athletes, and it's only going to be $4 and it's going to be this app. Those things are going to come and go because it's nonsense. But there's very few people doing it the way that we do it, where we have somebody like yourself who is seeing the athlete through the recruiting process from start to finish. You know how much time and effort that takes. It's hard. That's why people aren't doing it that way anymore. That's why they're going to $4 apps, and they want, because it's shiny and it looks good, and they can get it out to the masses and try to make a buck off of it. We're not, I the owner of the company, I'm not against making money, of course, but we want to make money by providing a service that's valuable to our clients. And in the end, it's about, we take the money from the client and we save the money on the back end, and that's how we're judged on what we do. So I think we're really unique and really different. in that regard, but I'm not going to take credit and say that anything. All that I'm doing is trying to get good people like you and put them and connect them with kids. I'm just connecting the dots on the back end. Student athlete world in itself is only as good as the people working at student athlete world.
Great answer. Finishing up, and I really, this has been a really informative thing. Just in finishing up, Tim, I want to go through some roles and all that, and pick your brain here. High school coach's role in the recruiting process. How do you think it is now, and exactly what do you think their role should be?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I would tell a high school athlete is don't expect your high school coach to get you recruited, but any help that they're willing to give you, be especially grateful for. And ask them and, see if you can get them to assist with you as much as possible. But the expectation that they do this process for you is really absurd. You look at a sport like football or something, if there's, there might be 30 kids every year that want to play college football from a big, a large school, or maybe 15, 20 kids or whatever. That high school coach just literally couldn't do that recruiting process for each kid. They just don't have enough time, in addition to being a teacher, or, obviously coaching and all the things that they have to do. So they're an assistant in the process. They're there to help and guide you, whatever they can do, whether that's putting some video together for you or whatever. But there's one really important piece that they can do. They can halt your recruiting pretty easily, because if a third party like us is marketing an athlete to a college, the college coach is going to want to know what the high school coach thinks about the athlete, because the high school coach isn't getting paid to get that kid recruited. So if you don't have a good relationship with your high school coach, if they're not going to say great things about you, then that high school coach can very easily shut down that recruiting process. I even think there's a difference between club coaches and high school coaches, because the club coach kind of has to say nice things about you because there's a financial stake at that, whereas a high school coach, maybe their paycheck's coming from the school district or whatever, so they don't have that same financial stake in that process. So I know for me as a college coach, I would want to know what the high school coach thought about a player, and I can read through the lines. If you're not saying great things about the player, I know what you're saying. So the biggest role the high school coach can have is kind of be that reference point, that they're going to get a checkup on. If your high school coach is telling you, oh, don't worry about it, if you're good enough, you'll get recruited. And unfortunately, there's high school coaches out there that say that. I get it from their point of view, because what they don't want is they don't want moms and dads of sophomores and eighth graders and whatever coming in their office saying, oh, I saw you help Johnny get recruited, now you got to help my kid. So what a lot of high school coaches do is they just shut it all down, and they say, look, buddy, look, this whole program, if you're good enough, these coaches are going to come to me and they're going to get recruited. If you're not good enough, it's not going to happen for you. That's not true, because there's lots of levels, and there's lots of different levels of play in college. There's lots of kids that might be good high school players but not good college players, and vice versa. And there's a lot you can do as an individual athlete to get recruited. So I understand why sometimes the high school coaches do that. But the reality is, you don't need to rely on your high school coach to get recruited. What you need to do is play really hard for your high school coach, be a great teammate, be a great leader, help them in their program. That's your role. Your job is if you want to play college sports, you have to be the one, you as a student athlete has to be the one to contact college coaches, to send your video out, to do all the legwork. It's just not fair to expect your high school coach to do that for you. if you have a good one that's going to help you, then awesome. Consider yourself very lucky. We see both, right? I mean, we see great high school coaches that go above and beyond. And we see ones that actually do a lot of harm to hurt the kid from getting recruited. And then there's, of course, lots in between. So I don't think it matters as much. You know, what you really need your high school coach to do is to vouch for you in a positive way. Anything outside of that is just a bonus.
Sure. Going in it now, you know what? Yeah, I mean, we've covered the players and everything, and that's so well. Parents. I mean, it's funny. You know, you've dealt with it in college, high school, recruiting level. I've dealt with it being a college coach, high school coach, and all sports, and now into the recruiting stuff. Do's and don'ts of parents' role in the recruiting process. I'm going to let you go, and then I'm just going to, and if you don't do it, just shed a little light from like my thing. But yeah, some parent roles, Tim's, the do's and don'ts.
Yeah, I think a big talking point I usually have with clients is the 75-25% rule, which is in the communication with the college coach, try to keep the parent involvement to around 25%. So 3/4 of the time the kid is talking, 3/4 of the time it's, you know, the kid sending an email to the college coach. Of course the parents are going to be involved because money's involved. Parents are full-grown adults. The kids still, they're 17, 16, 17, 18. They're still not fully grown yet. So of course the parents are going to be involved, but try to keep that at 25%. And then importantly there, the first communication, try to have that come from the kid. So instead of dad calling up, hey coach, I want to introduce you to my son. My son's really good. He does this, this, and this. Have it be the kid. And the challenge is the kid's not going to be able to say it as well as the parents will. They're not going to be able to articulate their strengths. They're not going to be able to be as confident in all the things. Well, that's what parenting is, teaching your kids how to do that. So I know your role, Tom, you're probably spend more time coaching kids how to talk to coaches than anything else. That's probably the most important thing we do with kids. And it's so helpful because it is in 2020 now, it is refreshing when you meet a young person who can talk to college coaches, because it's becoming more and more rare. You know, the kids that are going into college now were born in 2003. When they were 5 years old, they got a smartphone stuck in their face. So these kids are not great at talking to adults. So if you can be great at talking to adults, you're separating yourself from your competition. So the biggest parent role sometimes is stay out of the way, guide and push from behind instead of, you know, getting involved. Do's and don'ts: don't badmouth other parents, don't badmouth other kids in the recruiting process, don't badmouth, just don't say it. It's so hard when parents say to me, well, I don't want to be one of those parents, but ... I mean, how many times do we hear that? It's like every single, like, if you don't want to be one of those parents, you know what? Don't be one of those parents. Don't say it. Don't tell me you don't like your high school coach. Don't tell me you don't like your club coach. Because as a coach, like I'm talking like if I'm a college coach recruiting a kid, if you don't like your coach, guess what? You're probably not going to like me either, because I'm probably going to be harder on you than your high school coach was or your club coach. So don't tell me about that. Don't say, well, I only scored 12 a game because my coach didn't really know how to use me. And if he would have used me better, I would have scored 18 a game. Don't say that, because now I'm thinking, well, no, you're going to come here and I got to deal with this. As a college coach, if I had to decide between two players that were very similar, and one of them had a disaster parent and one of them had a parent who just kept their mouth shut, I'm taking the parent that keeps their mouth shut 100% of the time, because I don't want that disaster parent anywhere near my program. So to sum up my thought on it, as a parent, there's not a lot you can do to get your kid recruited, but there's a whole lot you can do to not get your kid recruited.
Great points. Great points. Well, you know, I think we've gotten some great information out. I mean, can you think of anything that you'd like to add, Tim, that I haven't covered? Anything that you'd like to add as far as anything?
I think we really hit the bases. It's a simple process. Start early, contact as many schools as possible. Be realistic in your expectations. Be proactive, reaching out to college coaches instead of expecting them to come to you. Those 4 tenets of what we do really encompass everything about the recruiting process. We talked about timing, and with COVID putting a wrinkle in things, and we talked about the different levels and financial aid and the piece. In many ways it's a complicated process, but in many ways it's very simple. So I think we did a good job kind of hitting all the bases of the recruiting process.
I just really want to thank you. Let everybody know that Tim and I have been together for a little over 7 years now, and I will tell you what, he's wonderful to work for. Anything that I've ever needed, with an athlete or with a parent, he is always right on board and looks to sit there and resolve any issue, any problem, or help out in any way, promoting and marketing, concerns, education guidance. You can get a hold of us, at student. It's recruiting.studentathleteworld.com, and then we have studentathleteworld.com that goes to international tours. Anybody interested in recruiting assistance can contact us. We will get back to you right away. And Tim, I thank you so much for everything. Hope everybody in North Carolina is feeling better, and I appreciate you sharing information along with me that I think will be very helpful to young men and ladies that are looking to go play college athletics.
Well, my pleasure, Tom, and any parents or athletes still listening, if you are considering getting some help with college recruiting, there's nobody better than Thomas Davis to help you with that. So hit him up, and I hope we can look forward to working with you.
Thanks a lot, Tim, and I'll be talking to you soon.
All right.
All righty.